Hey, meaningful movers. Welcome back to Moving with Meaning, the podcast where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. In today's episode, let's put our minds at ease by tuning out the noise in this overstimulated world. That's easier said than done, but you know how it is and what we do. We need to set that theme, so let's go ahead and do that. The word of the day is purpose. This is the reason for which you do something or put into place a framework, even a mindset to achieve a target goal. To me, we use this word in this context without truly articulating what our objective is and why do we believe in it. Sometimes we will subconsciously construct an objective because there's less risk involved. Avoidance over acknowledgement. Well, that's enough of me talking. How about we introduce our guest? There's no one better to do that than himself. Craig, why don't you give the people a bit of background about yourself and what you're going to share with us today?
Oh, hi, Krystal. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. I've been looking forward to this for a while. And I think it's interesting that the word of the day is purpose, because I'm a hypnotherapist, and this work that we do in therapeutic hypnosis is having you heal, whether that's, emotional issues, mindset issues, beliefs you might have about yourself or the world around you, or even physical issues. It's healing on purpose. And we're using the mind. And that may seem a little out there, a little scary, but what Dr. Irving Kirsch called hypnotherapy, he called it a non-deceptive placebo. And those are a bunch of fancy words for meaning you're healing on purpose. We've probably all heard about research studies that have been done. Any sort of research that's published in a peer-reviewed medical or scientific journal has to have the control group. And so let's say there's a pharmaceutical company and they're doing medications for high blood pressure. They have to have half the group take a fake pill, because they know mind will heal the body. They actually have to account for that in their research. And so half the people will get the sugar pill, and a lot of the people will get better, maybe 30%. They're literally healing themselves through their mind. They're just being tricked into doing it by saying, oh, this pill that looks exactly like the real medication that has no healing potential whatsoever, no medicinal value to it, will heal you. And they're, oh, okay. And they do it. And so what Dr. Irving Kirsch says, okay, well, this is healing with the mind, only we're doing it on purpose. And so there's nothing magical or mystical about hypnotherapy or what I do. It's just relaxing the mind and body to the point where you can quiet down that conscious level of mind and access the subconscious, where a lot of that hurt and pain and the wounds that we've maybe been holding on to since we were kids, it's where that stuff is stored. And it's not that your subconscious mind is against you. It's for you. It's for your health. It's for your benefit. It's for your safety. It's for your protection. Just may using not so resourceful instructions on how to do that. It may be using instructions you put in there when you were a child. Mm-hmm. And let's say, somebody has a fear of just putting themselves out there in the world and shining their light. It's like, well, maybe the safest thing, the best thing you could have done as a child to keep you safe and protected was to hide and keep yourself small. Maybe you lived in a kind of a dangerous household, and being out there and shining wasn't really looked fondly upon. And so you learn to keep yourself safe, to keep yourself small. Okay, well, that was a great instruction to have as a child, but that doesn't work anymore when you're an adult. Mm-hmm. But if you don't change the instructions, why would anything change? And so that's probably the big thing that we do in hypnotherapy, is just change those old instructions, drop that old hurt and pain. You're allowed to do that. This isn't talk therapy where I go on and on and on. Sometimes that's helpful and that's useful to do that kind of healing work. But what we do in therapeutic hypnosis is just allow you to do the healing work in a very safe and relatively quick way. Generally, I see people 3 or 4 times, as opposed to maybe like a talk therapist who over the course of 2 years and you're seeing them 80, 90, 100 times. We're going to do this work, but it's like you're going to do the healing. I'm not going to fix you. Hypnotherapy in and of itself is not going to fix you. You're going to fix yourself. Yeah. But you're going to do it on purpose.
Oh, I'm just loving this. Before we jump into that, you mentioned 80, 90 times going to a therapist and then reducing it to, like you said, 4 or 5. That's not a profitable model. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta, right. No. And that's good because you're not for profit. You're really, truly about help, about support.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's definitely something to think about if you're thinking about getting into this business. Definitely not the get rich quick scheme, but it's extraordinarily satisfying and joyful work to help people in that way. But what's interesting about talk therapy, just real quick, probably a lot of your listeners know about Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud was a hypnotherapist. He started off studying hypnotherapy back in Vienna in the late 1800s. He had a speech impediment. When you're a hypnotherapist, you talk a lot because not only are you engaging with the person you're working with, you want to, know a little bit more about what they want to work on. But then there's the inductions, and there's deepening and getting them more and more relaxed. And then there's the healing work you're doing. And maybe there's some sort of visualization exercise you want to add into that and some other techniques. And then there's the suggestions you want to throw in to improve how they feel about themselves and all that. Plus then waking them up and then talking to them about how their experience. So you talk a lot. And if you have a speech impediment, that's not going to go very well. And he also was annoyed that people would go into a hypnotherapist's office with the problem and walk out without the problem. He wanted to really dive in and look deeply into, why this darkness and why this shadow and why this hurt and pain has been held on to. And let's dive deep into that. Not really helping them heal it, but just like discovering more about it. He literally called it this form of analytical psychology that he was developing. He literally called it talk therapy because he's just going to have the person talk about it. So he didn't have to do any of the talking. He'd have the other person do all the talking. And he said about this new type of therapy he was developing was that it was not a poor man's therapy because it was going to take hundreds and hundreds of hours to complete. And so it's kind of a head scratching. It's like, well, who's this therapy really for? I mean, I guess it's may be interesting and maybe insightful to discover some of the more nuanced issues around what you're dealing with, but why not just let it go and drop it? It's sort of like, we hold onto a pin very tightly with our fist. And sometimes we hold on to that pin for so long that starts feeling very familiar to us. After a while, it starts feeling comfortably miserable, but it's comfortable because it's so familiar to us. And then after a while, we hold on to this pen, we grip onto it with our fist for so long that we start to think that this is who we are. But it's not. All you have to do is open up your fist and drop the pen. And you don't have to know how a pen is made. You don't have to know what color ink it is. You don't have to know what ink is or how ink is made. Just drop the pen. It may be interesting to find out what color ink it is, or just drop it. And as you say, why this doesn't take a long time. You're just done with the work and move on with life. And what's interesting about this is, change happens in an instant. Now, there may be some lead up to that change. There may be some setup to the change. But in terms of creating change, it happens in an instant. And just as instantaneously as that trauma can be installed, if a child, there's some abuse growing up, or there's an accident, an auto accident, or something like that, just as change can happen in an instant in terms of creating that trauma and installing that hurt and pain and that anxiety and that panic and that anger, why wouldn't you instantaneously be able to heal it? It's like, who told you that you couldn't? And what is it to their benefit that you don't?
Oh, I see now. Okay. Yeah.
So that's the difference between, and not to disparage talk therapists, not to, throw them under the bus or anything. There's some great therapists out there, and it can be a very helpful and healing modality. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who have worked with it, and it's been very useful. But I just think a lot of people come to me and it's like, okay, I've been doing talk therapy for 2-3 years and I still hurt. I was like, well, then, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you working on? A lot of times just focusing on that hurt, that feeling state, not even understanding why it's there. Just like focus on the hurt. Where do you feel it? In your chest or your heart or your stomach or your gut or the back of your neck or your head or wherever you feel it? Let's do something about that feeling state and get rid of it. And it dominoes affects so many things while you're doing it. So it's pretty extraordinary.
That's a great perspective, though, because like you said, the change can be so instantaneous, but we've all been given the narrative, oh, well, it takes time. It takes time. And that's what that's what I've been saying on this podcast. Like, it takes time to make...
Yeah, well, there is some setup to healing, maybe years or decades for you to get to the point where you want to drop it.
Yeah.
But when you drop it, that work doesn't take a long time. Change happens instantaneously. You just have to get to the point where you're ready to make that change.
Yeah. And
there may be a certain aspect of yourself that's like, I need to hold on to this to protect myself.
Yeah, right.
Armor yourself in that way. And maybe that's useful for a while, especially as you're a child.
Yeah.
How you're growing up and how you're living life really isn't under your control. But in terms of when you make the decision that it's time to heal, okay, let's do it then.
Yeah.
When you're ready.
Okay. Well, I think before we get into a little bit more about how does hypnosis work, because I'm very interested in this, I think your story to your becoming a hypnotherapist is so extraordinary and so beautiful in itself as just someone who struggled with depression, anxiety, and then seeing your child go through that, where you kind of said, no, I don't want my son to go through the same struggles and challenges that I did. So tell me a little bit about just quickly your struggle and then how the birth of your son what inspired you to continue going on this path.
Yeah. Well, I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety that I really noticed it starting in my teenage years. And this is back in the 1980s. There was no internet back then. Really, all you had was talk therapy or whatever book you could find in the library or the bookstore. Didn't have any of these newer therapies that have been coming out the last 20 years or so. I mean, they didn't even have the Prozacs, the SSRI drugs. Those didn't come out until the late 1990s. And as a teenager, I don't know, you don't really know any better. You just say, I guess this is how everybody feels. And if you don't know any better, why would you think there is anything to change? Sort of like, how do you describe color to a blind person?
Yes.
It's like, I don't know, it's just, if that's all you experience, then how would you know to change? And so I just kind of settled into it and managed it. And it was really in the year 2001. My wife was pregnant, and I kind of sat myself down and had that long talk with myself and said, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I don't want my son to have to struggle with this, because my mom struggled with depression. I struggle with depression and anxiety. So there's a good chance, either whether it's nature or nurture, that my son might struggle with it as well, whether it's a genetic component that got triggered or it's just what you're mirroring in the house. So I started doing the heavy lifting and looking at ways of dealing with it. And at that point, there was the internet. The internet was out there, so you could do a lot more research, and there was a lot more understanding about the different issues around depression and anxiety. And so I just started looking into it and reading and studying and finding the exercises and the techniques and the strategies, and started working on myself. What really helped the most for me was hypnotherapy, because you start dropping that stuff. What's interesting about this work is even if you don't understand what the problem is, that's the conscious level of mind. Unconsciously, you know what the problem is. Because especially as the issue of anxiety, more than likely, you're not anxious all the time. It's just in certain situations.
Yeah, right.
And you may not even know what the trigger is or what the situations are, because you feel anxious at the grocery store and at work and driving down the road, but not all the time at work and not all the time at the grocery store. There's a certain instance that you know what they are, because your mind is literally changing your physiology. And that's hard to do. Yeah. You have to start creating a different brain chemistry. You have to start creating adrenaline and cortisol, those hormones. You have to start creating these neuropeptides, these molecules the brain creates that gets dumped into the bloodstream. These molecules are sending the message of emotion to your body. That's why you feel like that. That's why you can differentiate between anger and anxiety and sadness and joy and happiness. It's because of these neuropeptides. And if you're dealing with the stress response, 300% more blood is moving to the big muscles of your arms to fight, 300% more blood moving to big muscles of your legs to escape. That's got to come from somewhere. So your body starts shutting down the power on your immune system. That's why people get sick with stress. They start shutting down the power in your digestive system. That's why people get irritable bowel syndrome. And that's hard to do. Here we go. It's doing it on purpose. You just don't know why. But unconsciously, you know exactly why you're doing it, because you're doing it.
Yes.
You're only doing it in specific situations. You may not really understand what those situations are, but it's happening. But it's just happening automatically. It's gone to the point where you've practiced this so much that's now become an automatic habit. Because what is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. What you practice, you get better. And we know this, if anybody's learned how to play the piano or the violin or the guitar or something, or dance or martial arts, learning how to ride a bicycle or learning how to walk as a child, learning how to speak a foreign language. What you practice, you get better at. But what if you're practicing armoring yourself against a threat that you're not even sure what it is? But there's some instructions in your subconscious mind. When A, B, C, and D happen in the world, you need to armor yourself.
Right.
And sometimes that's with anger. And we probably know those people in our lives that just get enraged. Yeah. And it's at the drop of the hat. Maybe they're family members or friends or coworkers. You can just see, this meeting's not going to go very well, and I know that person's going to get really enraged. And they do, because it's automatic for them. Whatever reason, they're armoring themselves with that anger. They've now practiced it to the point that it's just automatic and it happens. They don't even have to think about it. And so just like, if you want, I need to go get a glass of water. You don't think, sit up out of the chair, left foot, right foot. You just do it. You just go.
Yeah.
And our emotions can react in the same kind of way automatically like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of this work is just, healing those old wounds that create that reaction and then starting new instructions that you can then practice. So you can have all the joy, all the happiness, all the confidence, all the feelings of success and gratitude that you want, but it does come with some practice. Like anything, just because you remove the hurt and pain doesn't automatically think you're full of joy and happiness. Maybe you will be, but if not, well, you can practice that.
I like that. I like that point that you just made right there, because it's the expectation, right? At the end of this, once I do this, I expect this to happen. When we start to do that, we almost disappoint ourselves, because we could really be healed. We could actually really be happy, but we have an idea or an ideal of what happiness will feel like. And so it's like, if I don't feel that way or I don't receive it in this rush of X, Y, and Z, then it's not happiness. It's not joy. It's not this. You're discrediting your healing.
Yeah.
You're discrediting all the work that you did just to get to that point anyway. So I like how you put that at the end there.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's also that idea about like your physical health. No one would assume that just because you stop with the junk food and you stop with the beer and the margaritas, that you're going to run a marathon the next day.
Right.
No one would expect. No, it's going to take some training to get to that point.
Yeah.
And just as you can't just go to a personal trainer once and work out the gym 2 times, and now you're in shape for the rest of your life. It's relentless about your physical health. Well, what about your mental and your emotional health? Why would we think that just going to a couple of hypnotherapy sessions or going to some talk therapy for a few months, all of a sudden for the rest of your life, it's just going to be rainbows and unicorns? It's not. There's always challenges in life. Even look at the Dalai Lama. I'm sure a lot of listeners know that the Dalai Lama, he's the kind of the spiritual pope, if you will, of the Tibetan Buddhists. The man's 90 years old and he still meditates every day. If anybody's to have it down by now, it would be that guy, because that's all he's done. He's this practice and these techniques and teaching about it most of his life. But you read his books and he talks about the anger and the sorrow and despair, what's going on in Tibet. Chinese government still bulldozing down his monasteries to build roads and buildings, and probably mainly to give him the middle finger. And they're still, arresting his monks and torturing his monks. And of course, that's going to create a lot of anger and despair. He's a human being.
Yeah. But
he doesn't want that to be who he is, his essence. And as a human being, he's going to feel the full spectrum of emotions. He's not going to shut off anger, because there are times to be angry. But in terms of who he is at his very heart, he wants to be filled with loving kindness and compassion. So every day he practices that, even at 90 years old, even after in that realm and that culture. He was discovered as the Dalai Lama when he was like 5 or 6 years old. So he's been training some 85 years. Again, you think he'd have it down by now, but he still practices. Any master musician is still going to practice every day. Any athlete is still going to practice every day. Even if they've won, 10 gold medals at the Olympics, the very next day they're out practicing.
Yeah.
And so again, what does that mean for our mental health and our emotional health? Are you practicing happiness? Are you practicing joy or practicing confidence? A lot of people say, well, no, I don't have confidence. I have to give the big presentation at the meeting next week at work, or I'm starting this business and I have investors coming and I need to do a presentation or something. I'm not very confident in that. Okay, well, you might not be confident in that. You are confident in a great many things. You're confident that you can tie your shoes. You're confident you drive a car if you can, or ride a bicycle if you can. You're confident in a great many things. You're confident that you can walk over to the kitchen faucet, turn it on, and drink a glass of water. You're confident that you can do that. Well, what does that feel like, and where do you feel that in your body? And now let's link it to doing that presentation.
I like that.
That's what you're saying. What is hypnotherapy? That's it.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're doing anything that you're not doing already, because a lot of the issues people come to see me for, it's that they've hypnotized themselves already. I know the most peaceful, most wonderful people, most joyful people, but you get them in a car on a freeway driving, the rage that comes out. And why is that? They have hypnotized themselves to literally change their personality. Right? When they get on the road, everybody's an idiot. Look at this guy with his blinker still on. Who's this guy going too fast? Don't ride my bumper. I'm not going to get out of the way. Like, my God, you're the most compassionate, loving person outside of a car.
Yeah,
but you get yourself inside, and this hypnotizes them to literally change their personality. And you can see this in maybe other places. What situation causes maybe anxiety or causes love? You see it with grandparents. find the grandbaby comes and they're just filled with joy and have just seeing the baby. It's like, where do you see yourself changing and hypnotizing yourself in that way? We usually think about it in a bad way, like, okay, well, I feel anxiety or anger or something like that. You hypnotize yourself in good ways. So really, we're all walking around pretty much hypnotized all the time. Whether we're at work or with family or friends, we feel different ways in different situations. We've hypnotized ourselves to feel that way. So really, a lot of this work is dehypnotizing you from what you've already done. And again, here's that word again. We're just going to do it on purpose.
Yeah.
We're not going to trick you into it. We're going to do this healing work because this is what you want to do. And in terms of hypnotherapy, it's really just about your intention. What is it you want to do? I can't make anybody do anything you don't want to do. And that's the biggest misconception, the biggest myth about this work is that it takes away control. I have no control. It's really about giving it back to you in a conscious way. That's why smoking cessation, people want to quit smoking. That's not 100% guaranteed, because if you don't want to quit smoking, you're not going to quit.
Right.
If the wife says, sends the husband to go quit smoking because it's a lot of money to smoke and it's gross and disgusting. But if the husband doesn't want to quit, they're not going to quit. That's why I can't go into the Las Vegas casinos and clubs and things and just snappy, wavy. Everybody quits smoking. If they don't want to quit, they're not going to quit. Just like I can't go, to the world leaders and create world peace. I can't go to Elon Musk and hypnotize him to write me $1 billion check.
Right.
The reason why I don't have $1 billion check from Elon Musk is because he doesn't want to write me one. So if you don't want to change, you're not going to change. But imagine if you do. And so just like, if somebody wants to come to quit smoking, you're going to quit smoking because you want to. But then I can't add in some sort of suggestions to go rob a bank later that afternoon, and we'll split the money because it's against your morals. It's against your ethics. You're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people know hypnosis from the shows they see maybe in comedy clubs or Las Vegas or YouTube videos or something like that. And it's silly. These people are singing like Elvis Presley and dancing like Michael Jackson and barking like dogs and quacking like ducks and riding roller coasters and all sorts of weird stuff. And the reason why they're doing that is because they want to. They volunteered to get up on that stage, every single one of them. That hypnotist, he's there to do a show, especially Vegas. That's pretty expensive, those shows in Vegas. So he's there to entertain. He's not going to try to give people who don't want to do it up on stage. And there will be people who will try to trick him and I'll show him, he can't hypnotize me. They're going to be off that stage pretty quick. Yeah. Because they're going to do all sorts of little techniques and experiments to make sure, can you go deep in front of, 200 people with bright lights on your face? And a lot of people will do it. The people who volunteer because they want to. Now, I don't want to do that. I'm sure, Krystal, you don't want to do that. And probably most of your listeners don't want to do that. It's not how they see having a fun night. But the people who get up on that stage and dance like Michael Jackson and sing like Elvis Presley, they're extroverts. They're exhibitionists. Yeah. They want to have fun. They want a funny video to put on Instagram or TikTok. They just want to be silly in front of their friends. They just want to have a good time. Yeah. Just watch them. Look at the smile on their faces. They're having a great time being a part of the show. And so they want to do it. Their intention is to have a fun night, is to entertain. And so they do. So imagine what if your intention is to heal? What if your intention is, I'm tired of the hurt and the pain and the anger and the anxiety? It's like, all right, that's step number one. That's the biggest step of them all. Your intention to want to do it. And that's why this doesn't take a long time. Healing happens in an instant. Now, that doesn't necessarily we're creating amnesia or anything like that. That's not how this works. You want to remember that a hot pot will burn your hand on the stove. You just don't have to hold on to the hurt and pain anymore. You want the wisdom. There's some dangerous situations out there in the world. So you want to be wise. You want to have the knowledge and the understanding and the learning from life. You don't have to hold on to the hurt and the pain. That doesn't serve you. And so keep the wisdom, keep the learning of it. We're not going to wipe your memory. Yeah. But you can turn down the volume of it all, and get to a point where it doesn't hurt anymore. And it's just like that was a life experience that maybe sucked, but you have the wisdom from it and you're a stronger person because of it.
Imagine.
Yeah, imagine. Well, and that's actually a form of hypnotherapy. Imagine what and just using your mind. It's like, that would be pretty awesome if I was that person. Imagine what it would be like to just drop all that hurt and pain. And who could you be? The mind starts working. Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. Yeah. It's just influencing people to do the healing work. Only again, Dr. Irving Kirsch says we're not tricking people into doing it. Yeah. It's just non-deceptive. We're going to sit down. What do you want to heal? Okay, that's what we're going to heal. Yeah. And you may not even know what you need to heal. I send people an intake form before a session to get more details. Usually we talk on the phone. We have like a consultation call just to make sure it's a good fit and that hypnotherapy can help and what it's all about. You write what you need to write. And some people will write 7 detailed paragraphs about what they want to work on, the hurt, the pain they've been through. Other people may write just one word, anxiety. Mm-hmm. All right. That is exactly what we will work on. Because again, I'm not healing anybody. And hypnotherapy, you're healing yourself. So you know what that means when you say, I want to work on my anxiety.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So then that's what we work on. You might not even consciously understand what that means.
Well, of
But your
course,
subconscious mind, again, is like leading you to this work, just like it does with the rest of your day. Subconscious mind makes up 95% of mind, according to neuroscience. Conscious mind is 5% of mind, and yet we think that's what's leading our lives. It's not.
Yeah.
It's the unconscious mind. That's why if you've ever taken any sort of medication, you know that the color of the medication means something.
Oh, interesting.
Like the softer colors of light blue and green work better as tranquilizers, whereas more stimulants are going to be red or yellow. The best pills are green or pink. It works better if the brand name is on the pill. It's better if they're oval rather than round.
Oh, wow.
There was a research study that was done. These actors would go into a park, something like Central Park, a big park. There's people hanging out and sitting on park benches and things. And they would go up to these people, sit on the bench with them, and they'd have a cup of coffee in their hands. They'd say, "Excuse me, could you hold my coffee? I need to get my phone out of my pocket and text my mom." Half the time they had hot coffee. The other half had iced coffee. But the person would hold the coffee, the person would get their phone out, fiddle on their phone, say, "Oh, thank you so much," grab the coffee and leave.
Yeah.
A half an hour later, a person with a clipboard, a researcher, would come up to that person and say, "I have $20. And if you would read these 3 paragraphs and answer 2 questions, you can have this $20. It'll take you all of 2 minutes." And so most of the people did it. They went up to about 100 people and they read these 3 paragraphs. And the questions were about the character traits and the attributes and the characteristics of the main character. And the people who held the iced coffee, 81% of them said that the main character was cold and distant. The people who held the hot coffee said they were more warm and engaging. Mm-hmm. It was the same story. Mm-hmm. And so you think that your perceptions are all within you and you're controlling them or not. They're all about your external environment. Mm-hmm. Just by holding iced coffee, that's why when you're thinking about having a meeting, serve warm drinks beforehand. Mm-hmm. And people will see you as a warmer person giving your presentation. Yeah. It's just little things like that influence us. And so even just the color of a pill. And so it's just your perception of this kind of stuff. Wine tastes better if it's poured from a heavier bottle. Mm. Mm-hmm. Your car drives better. It feels smoother after it's been cleaned inside and out.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not. It's the same car. You just, cleaned the windshield.
Yeah,
Medications work better if they're more expensive.
Yeah.
And have a brand name on them.
Well, it better work if we're going to spend that money. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, well, it must be good. It's so expensive. So it's $50 a pill. It must be really good. Yeah. It's all this influence from our world. Again, that's that thing. It's like, we're already hypnotized.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's do it on purpose.
Mm-mm-mm. Well, I don't know, you went through this whole, I had it planned out, but you really flowed through that very well.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have any golden nuggets that you just want to add some catch up and leave the people with?
The biggest one, and I've already mentioned it, so there's no surprise here, but the biggest one is just what you practice, you get better at. Mm. There's a relentlessness to this work. Again, the Dalai Lama still meditates. Look at any master musician, they still practice every day. But Pavarotti, considered one of the greatest opera singers of all time, was going to a vocal coach every year of his life, not just when he was a young kid, learning opera. As at the height of his power and fame and skill and talent, he was going to a vocal coach every year. And so what do you need to do to become the best person you can be? Athletes continue to go to coaches and things like that because their body changes. You get older. And so what do you need to do to become the best person you can be? So what about your mental health and your emotional health? What are you willing to do? Even if it's 5 minutes a day, just imagine yourself as a person you want to be. And your mind's going to have to start creating scenarios on how to get there. You said it before, it's like, just imagine. It's like, imagine yourself a month from now with all the joy and the happiness. Don't worry about how you're going to get there. Just spend 5 minutes pretending to be that person. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And that's a whole nother hour-long conversation right there. But if you just pretended you were the person you wanted to be for 5-6 minutes a day, longer if you got it, you literally start rewiring your brain. Yeah. So imagine if you pretend that you're happy.
Yeah. Well, I like that.
You.
So that's the episode today. This is certainly another technique to aid you in conquering your anxiety and depression woes. I must say, I had never had hypnosis explained to me in such a thoughtful way. A guided meditation to switch your state of awareness with improved focus and concentration. I liken this to a lucid dream where you control the depths of your feelings and memories to explore. Through my own journey, it's been a lot about being embarrassed of my own feelings and thoughts. I suppose I created a sort of fictional reality. I truly appreciate Craig for sharing his personal journey and the moves he made to help his son with anxiety and depression. He didn't just stop there. He's taken his practice to help others. The inspiration we get from our children and how we find a career that is not only purposeful, but purpose-filled is truly amazing. Have any of you considered hypnotherapy? Benefits? Concerns? I love it all, and so will someone else. Before I let you go, Craig, why don't you go ahead and remind the people who you are, where they can find your resources, or reach out to you.
Sure. My name's Craig Meriwether. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, although because of Zoom, I pretty much work with everybody around the country and around the world, I guess, technically. The name of my practice is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I know that's a mouthful, but if you just Google Flagstaff Hypnosis, you'll see me come up in the Google search, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I also have a program on test anxiety. And whether you're a high school student taking the SATs or you're a professional, has to do a certification exam, real estate agent, lawyer, whatever, it's about dealing with that anxiety around tests. And it's called ACE Any Test. And that's a little easier to remember. And so you can email me from either place.
Oh, my kids may like that one. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to include all of Craig's resources and connections in the episode description, as well as on my website's resources page, movingwithmeaning.com. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving With Me in the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I am on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We're creating a community. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82 and on Pinterest at author Gay B. Clark. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble in TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. My Etsy store has some handy dandy digital downloads. Lastly, run over to my YouTube channel and have a look or two. Links are in the episode. Alrighty, I'm Krystal on Moving With Meaning, the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.